here on Dash Sports TV. It has been a very, very long time since we've done an episode of Wildcat Dash. You probably forgot what we look like. It's been so long, but the holidays and the winter break kind of messed up our schedules. But that doesn't matter now because we are back here. I'm joined again with my co-host Ryan Wohl. Ryan, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a great day for Wildcat sports and all ends.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Things are certainly trending in the right direction. I'm actually really excited for this episode because for the first time ever, we're going to be talking some Arizona hoops on this show. Not till later, though. I mean, last mess, it was all Arizona football, and we still had talking about football on this show. But with the basketball season in full swing, we're going to talk about that today. But of course, we actually will talk some basketball, but not till later. I want to talk about some football first because surprisingly, some good news coming out of football. We don't usually have a lot of good things to say about Arizona football. It's usually us just ripping them a new one, but we actually do have some good things to talk about. Over the holiday break, Kevin Sumlin was fired and replaced by New England Patriots quarterback coach Jedd Fisch. And since then, he has put together, at least in my eyes, a very impressive assistant coaching staff. I mean, Ryan, give me your thoughts on this because I think there was a ton of early criticism about Jedd Fisch and if he was even the right guy for this job. But after assembling this coaching staff, I don't think there's a lot of haters anymore, at least not from me. But what do you think of Jedd Fisch's new coaching staff?
I think the coaching staff is great. I mean, since the day they hired him, he received a lot of criticism on Twitter and on social media by people around the Tucson community, but I was always positive. I like to see a guy. I wanted them to bring in maybe a guy that hasn't been a head coach before, doesn't have that experience, but has a lot of upside. And a guy like Jedd Fisch has a lot of different connections, as you see. He brought in a lot of different highly regarded football minds from a lot of different worlds, from the pros, from college, guys that have played at a very high level. And yeah, there's just so much positive going on here. Like the one that jumps out to me and to everybody is with Dr. Blitz and Don Brown, with who was announced as the defensive coordinator, which was an excellent hire. His defenses the last 6 years, I believe, have finished in the top 10 in total defense, which is just incredible. And yeah, I think he's really going to bring that physical impact, and I think he's going to be a great influence to that defense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was, one of those haters. I think Arizona should have hired Brent Brennan instead from San Jose State. At least that's what I thought when the news first dropped. But I'm going to fully accept the L on this one and say that I was wrong about hating on Jedd Fisch. For me, I mean, I was initially upset because, leading up to the hire, Dave Hickey was preaching that, whoever the next head coach was going to be, someone who understands the Arizona tradition. It sounded like the next head coach was maybe going to be a former Arizona player or an alumni or something like that. And it was kind of starting to feel like that. He had a lot of meetings with the alumni, and it felt like a slap in the face, when he kind of, out of the blue said, yeah, Jedd Fisch is going to be the head coach, not, anybody else who we've been talking about before. But I mean, I don't know anymore. I think you got to give him credit, right? I mean, the coaches that he was able to bring into the staff. I mean, you mentioned about Don Brown. I mean, that was an A+ hire. A guy, of his coaching caliber and his past success at Michigan has no business being in Tucson. Like he is so much better than Arizona. He's a great defensive coordinator. I think he's going to be probably the best hire of this coaching staff. I love Chuck Cecil. In my opinion, is another one of those dudes that is overqualified. I think he's way overqualified to be a defensive backs coach. Like that dude can probably be a legit defensive coordinator somewhere. Brennan Carroll, son of Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll. Being the offensive coordinator is awesome too. And the same thing could be said for him as well. I mean, he had a great gig in Seattle, right? I mean, coaching with his dad, and probably would have been next in line to kind of climb the ladder in the Seahawks coaching staff. So the fact that he kind of jumped ship in Seattle to come here really tells me that Brennan Carroll wants to be here. And the guys that Jedd Fisch brought in actually want to be here. It's not like they're just taking this gig, because it's just their next stop in their coaching career. These dudes want to be here and, change, the program as a whole. And we totally heard that in the virtual press conference yesterday with the entire coaching staff. I mean, almost all of them, you could just hear the passion, behind their voices. Every single one of them, they had high praise for Jedd Fisch. They really liked working with him, and they all sounded like they were on the same page, which is not really something we really had last year with the other coaching staff. But I understand how easy it is to kind of say all the right things, but this staff is doing an incredible job so far, and really just rebranding this team.
Yeah, and as you said, the coaching staff feels like more of a team, as a group together, that they keep preaching the message that, and Jedd Fisch has been saying something I took away, which was important, is they want to build this program together. It's not one person, it's not a few, and guys will leave. Like, they want to be here for a few years, it sounds like, and they really want to build this thing up, and they truly believe that. And they're saying that I love and everyone loves is it's personal, and as you talked about, and as we said in months past, there has been branding, and that's part of the new branding, and could really get those players that recommitted and came back. I mean, as we saw, the top 4 receivers all were entering the transfer portal, and it seemed like that, like within a minute, you looked up and they all were back, and that doesn't happen by accident. They obviously believe in the message in a short period of time without even stepping on the field yet, which led by Jedd Fisch and the other coaches, that they could get something done. And like you said, like Don Brown, it's like he was at Michigan, like in the Big Ten. I know they struggled this year and haven't been up to their expectations that they should be, but like Michigan's Michigan. I don't care what their record is, what year. It's still a very highly touted program, and to come here, he must believe in this, because he must believe what they're putting together here, and it's really inspiring.
I don't think we should be concerned at all about Michigan's struggles last season, right? They were destroyed with COVID-19, and they had games canceled left and right, dudes opting out. Like, it's tough to win in those circumstances. Like, he was, every year except for last year, he was top 10 in total defense. So like, that's a dude you want to have on your coaching staff. And you mentioned earlier, they're not just saying the right things, they're actually doing it, and we've seen it so far. I mean, bringing back those 4 wide receivers, who were in the transfer portal and decided to come back, and they had confidence in the new staff, and they're bringing in transfers from other schools as well. Isaiah Rutherford, who was a 4-star corner from Notre Dame, like bringing him in like that's a home run of a transfer, in my opinion. And I think the most impressive thing that this staff has done so far is, obviously, they're bringing in a bunch of guys, but I heard at their press conference yesterday that they're contacting every single high school football program in the state of Arizona and personally calling them and like introducing themselves. Like, that's crazy. Every single Arizona high school program, like, that is not, we've never seen that type of dedication from, past coaches. And you don't have to do that. Like, that's not part of your job. Like, obviously part of the job is, being friendly with the coaches, but you don't have to call every single high school program in the state of Arizona. And to like actually, build that conversation. He was saying that it's going to be more than just a phone call. He wants to have weekly discussions with all of these high school coaches. Like, that is crazy. You can just see the dedication in Jedd Fisch and this coaching staff. And it's such a breath of fresh air. Like, we'll have to wait to see what the product is on the field, but they're going to have some work to do, but they're doing such an awesome job right now. And I really don't have a lot of negative things to say about, this staff and the way that they're building this thing up in such a short time too. It's only been like 3 weeks. I mean, it feels like forever ago, but it's only been like 3 weeks and they've already done all of this. So, imagine how much different and how much better this program could potentially be, when we're looking at the start of next season.
Yeah, and it's only going up from here. I mean, as we saw last season with that disaster in Sumlin, losing 13 straight games and not winning last season, it can only get better from here. It can't get worse. So, I mean, they don't have high expectations. People didn't have high expectations for them, and they're just out there proving people wrong, and that's what their whole message is. And another thing that today was a little, which wasn't that great. They've got people that have recommitted coming back, but losing three-star quarterback Clay Milton is a big loss. I mean, this QB room basically they just lost two of their top probably three quarterbacks. I mean, I'm counting Grant Cannell, and I mean Clay was coming in, so he would have been part of that room like in a few weeks, which is like that room right now is like Rhett Rod left. Like they're really like hurting.
Yeah,
They got yeah, they really only have two quarterbacks, I believe, on the roster right now.
Yeah, we were saying that Arizona needs to bring in one or two more quarterbacks even before Clay Millen left. So like, I don't think we should, sell this thing short. Like Clay Millen deciding to decommit is really tough for this program, and it's really interesting too because I mean, why would you decommit from this program? So like, especially at this point in time, like he had to have obviously had an offer from somewhere much bigger because it felt like something special is building here in Arizona. Like I don't know why you would want to leave unless you have a big Power Five offer that is just clearly better than Arizona. But if you're just going out there and you just took your name and put it in the transfer portal and not know your exact destination, that's kind of sketchy. I don't know, but he obviously knows what he's doing if he's going to leave and decommit at a time like this. But it's certainly tough. They're going to need to bring in. I was thinking they needed at least one, maybe two more without Clay Millen. So now I think they need at least two or three more quarterbacks because they've got I think two guys on scholarship, two quarterbacks on scholarship. I thought Clay Millen was probably he had a decent chance to start next season over Will Plummer. So that QB room is definitely in shambles right now. But there's a lot of time left. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the portal still, so we'll have to see. But that's not something that we should be selling short. That's actually a pretty big deal that we lost Clay Millen.
Yeah, I mean they're 100% going to bring out at least one more from the transfer portal or something else. I mean you can't have two quarterbacks obviously. Like we saw last year, they were running through quarterbacks quick, and yeah, Will Plummer. I mean I'm not down like I'm not out on Clay Mil. I mean I'm not out on Will Plummer yet. He showed some flashes last year, and maybe like with this new coaching staff and maybe like a full year to see what he has. Maybe he could shine by himself and not with anyone else around.
Yeah, Plummer's not a terrible quarterback. I didn't see anything bad from him, but I thought Clay Millen had the better upside. So I was a little more excited about Clay Millen than I about Plummer, but I don't think Will Plummer. But enough talk about football here. Let's move on and talk some Arizona basketball. Now we promised it earlier, so here we go. This Arizona team has had somewhat of an above-average season so far. At least I would say they're 10-3 right now, 4-3 in conference play. Hit a little bit of a skid last weekend when they hosted the LA schools and lost both of those games, but they came back last night and got back on track in Corvallis against Oregon State. We also saw a little bit of a lineup change last night, and that was because the Wildcats suffered a loss to one of their starting guards, Jemarl Baker Jr., who was injured and broke his wrist, or it was his hand, I think, in the UCLA game last week. He had surgery yesterday, but he will miss the rest of the season with that injury. So last night's lineup, we saw Terrell Brown slotted in to the starting lineup, but that wasn't the only change, actually. We saw freshman Benedict Mathurin replacing Dalen Terry, and we can rave about Mathurin in a second. I know you're probably jumping out of your seats talking about Benedict Mathurin, and so am I. We'll get into him later, but we also saw Christian Coloco hop into the starting lineup, replacing Jordan Brown. That change was probably more so because Sean Miller was looking for some more scoring off the bench, with that pecking order being shuffled. But I don't know. I know it's Oregon State, but that lineup actually did look pretty good last night. What do you think about it? I mean, how impactful is this season-ending injury to Jemarl Baker? It's kind of messed up the rotation, but it looked pretty good tonight. What do you think?
It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt the team. Don't get me wrong, but by him being out, it allows other guys. And Sean Miller said last night after the game that a player's gonna have bigger roles and be able to take more shots and get more looks and more minutes. And that's what we saw with Benedict Mathurin. I mean, we were speculating for the last few weeks. He's been showing flashes, but hasn't been playing, starter level minutes. So we didn't know, but last night he did it all. I mean, he had 31 points, 8 rebounds, and was 6 for 7 from deep, and he showed every single bit of an NBA prospect and somebody that if he keeps this up, he will not be here next year. I mean, like it's just he is such an exciting player. He's so versatile. He can guard like basically 1 through 4, depending on how big a team is, and his offensive ability is through the roof. And I think he's the biggest winner. I mean, there's no winner obviously when someone gets hurt, but he's the person that gains the most from Jemarl Baker getting injured.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine, honestly. I mean, especially if Benedict Mathurin keeps playing the way that he is. I mean, remember the name, Benedict Mathurin. That dude is a stud right now. I think we're going to be hearing his name called in the NBA draft next season. I mean, we were previously talking about, how there wasn't a lot of guys on this team that, are NBA ready, but I think this dude might be it. I mean, he was just, quickly starting to look like a legit NBA guy. I mean, he's averaging a little under 20 points per game in the last 2 weeks or so. I mean, you could just see the potential was there with the kid even before he started scoring and doing his thing. I mean, he's 6'7", he's got good length. He's very athletic and dangerous in transition. I feel like every time he gets a rebound, he just pushes the pace and starts the fast break by himself. Like, you don't really see that from a guy like him. So this kid is a walking bucket right now, and if he can keep scoring and being aggressive like this, and with all the tools he already has, you're right. I don't think we'll be seeing an Arizona uniform next season.
Yeah, and the hope is last night it was a blowout from the start as Oregon State didn't score until about 10 minutes into the game. And the hope is, I mean, Mathurin, he's not going to score 30 a game, but so hopefully James Akinjo and Terrell Brown could pick up their scoring in the starting lineup. James Akinjo has showed flashes of, that elite scoring ability, but has still sort of like Jemarl Baker did. He's not super consistent right now. But the hope is that over the last half of the season is he can improve that and start to be able to score, 12 or more points a game. And maybe Terrell Brown, he's had over 10-point scoring games, but maybe he can get near that mark every game.
Yeah, I mean, I know Baker kind of struggled the last few games, and last couple of weeks, he had that, but he had that stretch in the middle of the season where he literally just didn't miss a shot, and he was Arizona's most reliable scorer. So like, he will be missed, but that's the biggest thing about this team is that when one guy goes down, somebody else has showed up. Like like this team has good depth right now, and that's without Kerr Kriesla into the rotation, which we should see in a few weeks. I mean, at least hopefully. I mean, we have no idea when he'll actually be, though. I feel like that poor kid can't seem to catch a break right now. I mean, first he was ineligible to play, so he went to go play in Estonia, and then he came back and got his waiver, but they told him he wouldn't be allowed to play till February. And then I think Sean Miller just said that last week he broke his nose in practice. Like, poor kid, just like I don't know when we'll actually see him, but we are definitely rooting for him because I think the depth is certainly going to help once he comes back. But obviously having Jemarl Baker in the lineup is a good thing, but this team is deep enough to overcome that injury. And I think once Kerr Kriesla starts coming back into the rotation, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I think he's eligible to play the first week of February. So whenever he gets over that broken nose, I think he'll be good to go. But I think this team is all right now.
Yeah, I think he's eligible to return the 4th. And the way that Miller's been talking, it sounds like he can make a big impact early on. And maybe he'll start out a little slow off the bench, and he could wind up in the starting lineup, the last few games of the season, like Tabellis did. I mean, that's the next guy I want to get into later in the show. But yeah, this team is very deep, and the players that are some of the players that are struggling, Sean Miller is just going to move them to the bench and just give the guys that are putting on a show night in and night out that spotlight.
I mean, Kerr Kriesla is ready to go. Like, this isn't something that's like, oh, if you put him in the starting lineup, how good is he actually going to be? Like, he's been practicing with the team for a couple of months now. Like, he's ready to go. He's in shape. It's not like you're going to throw him out there and he's going to be, super rusty. So, like, I think he'll be fine there. But Azuolas Tubelis, he's been, silently the glue guy for this team. Like, I think he's averaging double digits, in his last like 5 or 6 games. I know whatever your stat was in your recap last night. I mean, he just goes out there and puts up at least 10 points every game, and he stretches the floor. He's a really reliable guy that Arizona is really needing right now. With all of this inconsistency, Tabellas has not been inconsistent at all. He's been consistently putting up double-digit points, and he's been great so far. What do you think of Azuolas Tabellas so far?
I love him, and that's that you were talking about is he scored double digits in 6 out of his last 8 games, and in the last 5 games he scored over 10 points every single game. And his rebounding, like in the last 10 games, he's rebounded he's had over 5 rebounds every game, which is very good. And yeah, he's been the most consistent guy over the last like about 2 weeks, and he's the same way to me. I look at him and Benedict Mathurin. If he keeps this up, he will not be on this team next year. I mean, he's just way too talented, and I know the longer he stays, the more he can grow. But the same thing goes for Josh Green and Nico. If they would have stayed, this year and like a few more years, they would have grown. But that's not how it works with injuries to some of these guys, and they're young guys, and they need to turn pro to make that money. And like his shooting is his touch around the rim is he finishes at such an efficient rate, and like he also can stretch the floor and step out to three, and he's very reliable there. He doesn't take many shots, but when he does, he's about 50% from there. And yeah, I mean, as his minutes go up, it seems like his production is just he's just like a rock. Like he's so steady. Like for now, like from now until the rest of the season, like I'd be surprised if he didn't show up in a game and put on a solid performance.
Yeah, well, he scored 30 something, last week. But I don't know. I think I think he's going to fly under the radar a little bit more so than Benedict Mathurin, because I think the hype around Benedict Mathurin, him being 6'7" and just scoring wherever he wants, is a little bit more eye popping than what Tabellas does. But I don't know. I think Tabellas is certainly could be an NBA guy, but I really hope he stays around a couple of years. And be's that little secret gem that Sean Miller has that none of the NBA scouts know about. But why don't we move on and talk about how good do you really think this team is now? I mean, we have, of course, Arizona self-imposed that 1-year postseason ban on themselves earlier this season. So, although they're not allowed to play in the NCAA tournament in March or compete in the Pac-12 tournament, they can, however, still win the Pac-12 regular season title by having the best record in the conference. They got a little bit of work to do if they want to do that. They're currently sixth in the conference with a 4-3 record. And the bad news about that is that UCLA is sitting pretty at the top of the standings with a 6-0 record. So, although there's a ton of games left, I think there's more than half of the conference season left. There's certainly some work to be done. But what do you think about this team, Ryan? I mean, does this team, still have a chance at winning the Pac-12 regular season title at this point?
I think we're gonna find out a lot about this team actually this week. They go on the road to Arizona State for an interstate battle, and then they come home next Thursday, the following Thursday, for a game against Stanford. And those are two good teams. Arizona State's record doesn't look too pretty yet, but they have a lot of talented players, and I think that game will be very close. And I think they have an outside shot to win the regular season title, but I wouldn't make any bets about that. I mean, like you said, UCLA just looks so dominant, and they're so deep too, and they don't seem like they're going anywhere. But I mean, to me, it's not about that. It's about the development of these guys, just how promising this young core looks. I mean, like if like a lot of these guys can return next year, and if you got a lot of these guys returning, and you got older players coming back, and they all stay healthy, hopefully they could make a run in the postseason next year, which is it's an exciting time. And yeah, like another thing that Sean Miller told me when I asked him about Tabellas' improvement was that he really has noticed over the last 10 to 15 days how much he has grown and really, taking that step forward. And he said now on the offensive end, they look for him every time and, to get him his work. And he said he's been watching Tabell's play for a few years now, and he's always thought that he could get to this level. But yeah, I think this team has a bright future, but I don't know if it's their season this year to win the regular season.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're on the outside looking in right now. I think if you asked me this question last week, I probably would have told you that this is one of the best teams in the conference. I mean, they were, just flying through their schedule up until that weekend against the LA schools. I mean, that weekend was rough. Like, those two teams, beat the crap out of Arizona. Like, they were, like I said, they were flying through that schedule. They had that one hiccup against Stanford, but that, those two games against USC and UCLA were really a reality check. I mean, I think they're kind of sitting more in the middle of a pack now after those two games, kind of seeing, how they fared against one of the two better teams in the conference. But, that game against Stanford was, definitely winnable. Like, I'm not concerned about that loss. Like, there were a lot of bad calls in that game. Like, the refs were a little bit tough on Arizona, but, they didn't get blown out. So, but those two games against the LA schools were really rough. Like, the defense was god awful. Like, Sean Miller even said it after the UCLA game. He was ripping his boys a new one. He was saying, like, he straight up said, he was like, we're a horrible defensive team or something like that. It was bad. Like, he was ripping into them. Like, a lot of guys, were getting into foul trouble as well. Like, they had like 3-4 fouls and, halfway through the second half. Like, it was really bad. Like, so it's tough to say, kind of how good this team really is now. Now that we saw them kind of struggle against two of the better teams in this conference. But I don't know. I think the good thing about this is that the rest of UCLA's schedule looks a little bit tougher than Arizona's. I mean, UCLA still has to play Oregon twice, USC twice, and then they got Stanford one more time on their schedule as well. As for Arizona, I think I think they got Stanford one more time, Oregon, USC, and UCLA just one time. So that you're looking at like 5 tough games for UCLA as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 tough games for Arizona. But no, I don't know. It'll be tough to see because we also have to remember that there's more than 2 teams in this conference. Like, Arizona is 5. There's 5 teams ahead of Arizona right now in the Pac-12 conference. So it's not like you can't just sit here and say that USC and Oregon can't just make a run and win the regular season title as well and get the best record. But I don't know. I think it's doable. But like you said, I think they're on the outside looking in. And if they get hot, maybe. But if they start playing defense the way that they play defense against USC and UCLA, like, pack it up. Like, there's no way they can win, playing defense like that. But they got a good offense, so who knows what this team can do.
Yeah, and the thing that sticks out to me, as you mentioned, that Stanford loss early in the season. Since that game, they're 3-0 on the road, which says a lot for a young team in an era in this season where there's a lot of weird things happening, player practices canceled, games getting canceled left and right. And yeah, that's really promising that they've been very good on the road. That's not where they've struggled, which is weird because if they would have had fans at McCall, I mean, I give us one of those too versus the California schools. Because historically, they win some of them, but yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 is tough. The Pac-12 is it's a hard conference, but this team is very good. I mean, I mean, with the postseason ban, like, it could actually, in a way, bring some guys back because, like, guys like even that guys that are like on the borderline of leaving to go play pro overseas or NBA, pretend.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think this season, if there's any team that can kind of, accept not playing in the postseason, I think it's this team. You just seen this team, kind of play so much better and gel better together. These dudes play for each other. And Sean Miller has said that, like, this is a really good group of guys who aren't focused on the NBA and they're not focused on, what's next year, right? Like, they're focused on building this team up right now. And I think, if like I said, if there's any team that can overcome, the postseason ban, it's this team. So, like, I think this is a good year to kind of see what you got this year and build on it next year. It will be interesting to see about the roster though, because they do have a solid 2021 class coming in. That's a whole other can of worms. We're running out of time, but if we want to talk about, we can talk about that next week. But the roster could definitely get full with the transfers and the commitments coming in next year. But I think we're running out of time here. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add on right before we head into the outro?
Just like this team's, like as we've been saying, if they're gonna make a push, they're gonna show it in the next 2 games as they have tough matchups against ASU and Stanford.
Certainly going to be some proving games over the next couple of weeks, but we're going to leave it there, and because we are out of time. So thank everybody for tuning in and watching. We have a new show schedule again with the new semester. It's actually our original show schedule, which was Fridays at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. for you Arizona folks, and on that Mountain Standard Time. But you can check us out over on our website where we post all of our live shows and highlights from our show. Over on dashsports.tv. You can also check us out on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you next week.